Now, this kind of indentured labor force, was it freed when America gained its independence and the British lost kind of the right to rule, or when did this practice end?
They were not granted their freedom under the United States Constitution because there is a reference in the Constitution to bondsmen of unspecified races, and there were still people profiting from white bondage.
Now, when we talk about slavery, of course, to me, this is mostly new. When we talk about slavery, we talk about these crowded ships coming over from Africa with people dying of diseases, people being kept in the holds of these primitive ships. Was it the same for whites?
The ships were not designed to carry human cargo as the slave ships were. They were designed to carry cargo, period, which could be horses, it could be rum, it could be lumber. These ships exhibited a higher rate of fatality for white slaves, as I document in my book, in the Middle Passage, as it's known, than existed for black slaves. They came to be very ashamed and embarrassed. The record of white enslavement is not something that they wanted to broadcast to the world. It was something that existed in a kind of an anomalous and ambiguous fashion, and one has to hunt these things out. Now, I'm not saying that it's something that was in code, but if we see a law that says no Indian or black shall hold Christians in bondage, we have to understand that these were people who were very reluctant to pass a great deal of laws. The people at that time felt, those who were religiously inclined, felt that the Ten Commandments were plenty of laws. If they passed a law, you can be sure that it was because there was a need for it.
Mm-hmm. Now, why is this not being known more widely in America? Why is this being swept under the rug?
I think that to a certain degree, Ernst, there is a function here of consensus reality that tends to prevail in human beings. I do not have a high opinion of human nature. And I think that humanity, more often than not, has a sheep-like, cow-like, bovine nature to itself. And since the received opinion is that blacks were slaves and whites were always the wealthy overseers, people don't tend to rock the boat. Now, people whose profession it is to look into this matter, university historians and academicians whose job it is to investigate and sift history, have this function of political correctness, which impinges on their tenure, their salaries, and indeed their relationship to the community. So if they begin to explore a politically incorrect area, then of course they may be subject to sanction. Secondly, we have a gigantic industry in the United States and in the West which is determined to limit black people to a slave mentality, to tell them you've been slaves, and the only way you're ever going to get out of that is to rely on the slave mentality of the socialistic welfare democratic system, which is going to subsidize your manumission ever further. Well, as we know, no one ever gets out of his own bondage by someone else doing it for you. That there has been a terrible distortion of history, and really an indictment of our historians for allowing this absurdity to hold forth, that there has been one race that has been enslaved more than the others. That may be the modern sense since 1840. It is certainly not the sense of the entire corpus of world history. In fact, the opposite has held true. Whites have been enslaved to the same extent or more than blacks.